What's going on, guys? It is Thursday, 12 p.m. Eastern, and you know what's about to happen. Marcin here with just a quick intro. 17 years in photography. I did anything from portraits, senior portraits, family stuff, product photography, fashion, weddings, mostly weddings. But I'm here to help you build your photography business. And I know it sounds kind of serious, like when people say business. Like I always was like, I just want to make money with my camera. Like I don't want to have this whole business thing, but making money with the camera would be nice. And that's exactly how I started. So 17 years ago, like I was kind of limping through it. You know, there was no material. There was some like technical books that you could go and read through, but those were like everything was so complicated. So and there was really no business aspect of photography business. So that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get you there faster to those like $3, $4, $5, $6,000 gigs. And every Thursday, I'm taking like a little, little thing, little golden BB instead of one silver bullet, and like help you guys out and move you along. Today, I was actually on a walk the other day, and I was thinking about like what can we do this week, and I figured I will join a couple of the questions together and combine it into one session. I'm hoping this is not going to turn like into a super long session, and I will try to stay on the practical side. And I do have my camera with me today. I have the 5D Mark IV. It really doesn't matter. I always say brand. I'm brand agnostic. You know, agnostic. They're all Nikon, Sony, Canon. They all make great cameras. I always try to optimize for like, can I make money with this camera? I'm never like too technical about it. I don't geek out on gear. I don't just buy gear to own gear so I can brag to my friends. If I buy gear, like it has to be practical. I have to be able to take it on the shoot, and it has to like do a function, right? And before I buy, I rent, and this is exactly what we're talking about here every Thursday. Today I'm focusing on the camera because people ask different questions about, like, we did one episode I think 2 weeks ago about camera settings, but that was more on like camera settings like menu. So if you go into a menu, we were actually customizing a custom menu. Today I wanted to take you guys through this is sort of like basics, but it's necessary to go through this step because we ultimately want to end up in manual mode in the camera. And when I say manual mode, let me just rearrange things around so I can maybe share this screen here. Let me see. Let me just pull this up, organize it so it's nice and neat for you guys. So when you're looking at the camera, when I turn it on, right, you always pay attention to the settings on the screen. But ultimate goal is to shoot in manual mode, which is this letter M at the top here. Normally when people get the cameras, they start with automatic mode. Today we're gonna actually be covering a couple of those modes. So from manual, you graduate. Think of it as like, it's almost like if you're auto mode, like think of it as like, hey, all rookies start in auto mode, and there's nothing wrong with that. Cameras today are doing a phenomenal job in shooting in auto mode. Sometimes I shoot in auto mode, like when I'm taking candid photos at an event. Like there's no reason to be in manual and complicate things. So no issue with that, but it's like a starting mode, and then where camera is doing all the thinking for you. And then gradually, this is actually done kind of intentionally on all cameras, because that dial will look the same on regardless of whether you have Nikon, Sony, or Canon camera or any other camera. You'll see that it's very similar. Some cameras may introduce like an extra bonus feature, but those basic ones are the same. So it's auto, it's the P mode, and then you have the TV and AV mode. And what is that all about? One is the shutter priority, one is the aperture priority, and we'll talk about like what does it mean? Like what the heck are those things about? And then eventually you graduate to an M mode, right? So we're not going to touch anything else today. This is what I'm going to take you guys through today. And the way I do it is like, I think of whenever I'm trying to explain a concept, I just don't want to throw like a technical jargon at you, right? There's books. I remember when I started, it just kind of, I was intimidated by all this information because I started digging through books, and the YouTube channels that were available, they were not like practical. They were more like for, like gear geeks to just geek out on like gear. And I don't necessarily care about all the options in my camera. I only care about 10% of the options in my camera that are going to make me money. That's really the essence, right? And when I'm using something, it's like I want to understand what it's for. So when somebody tells me like f-stop, like it's I remember I remember when I saw a photographer at a wedding shooting in manual mode. I'm like, I'll never be able to probably comprehend this. He's professional. He's a photographer. He was like, trained in this, and he's probably doing some crazy math on the fly, understanding all the like. But then when I went through it, I mean, took a couple of years, right? I was able to actually translate a like a more like a complex topic idea into something simple, into something practical. So like, what is f-stop, and why do I really care like the inner workings of the camera? What makes f-stop work? Like, I don't really care. I just need to know what do I need to know about the f-stop so that I can set my camera to get the results that I want, right? So for example, we'll talk about like, making my background blurry. Like, what do I have to do with my camera to make the background blurry? When, let's say, I go out with my kids and I watch their soccer game and I have a nice telephoto lens that I would like to use, like, what should I set my camera to freeze my kid? Because everything is blurry. And it's like, so that's exactly how I think, and this is going to be super helpful for those of you guys that are trying to understand it. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to go through camera settings, just so it feels like a second nature, just so you understand like what's available in your camera, and we'll do it super fast. My goal is basically to like, when you step away from the session today, you're definitely going to have like one thing, whether you're going to make your background blurry like the desired way, or that you're going to like go out to your kid's game and we'll be able to take like great photos, or if there's something wrong with the color of your images and you're quite not sure like why it's happening, we're going to cover that as well. And not only that, we're going to also cover composition. Composition is super, super important. So that's something I wanted to cover with you guys. And then what else do we have? And we also have ISO. Like, a lot of people hear like ISO, what is it? Why do I care? And how, for those of you like that remember film days, it actually, like, how does it translate? Because there was like different ISO ratings on the actual film before the digital cameras. How does it translate? So we're going to talk about that. You're basically going to be able to step away today and know a little bit about it. You're going to know about f-stop, which is aperture, shutter speed. You're going to know about white balance, ISO, and composition. I think it's 5 things. Maybe I missed one, but as always, I have a deck for you guys, just so we have something to follow and keep us on track. But the first thing is, let's actually take a look at the deck and see what we have. Camera basics, master the essentials, and a snap. And in this session, we're going to make all those camera settings feel like second nature. No tech overwhelm, just practical tips and hands-on demos that will have you shooting with confidence in no time. That is my goal for today. And this way, any portrait that you take, holidays are coming up, Thanksgiving, Christmas is coming, you guys will be able to leverage those skills. By the way, if you haven't seen the last episode that I did I think last week on Flash, if you combine this episode with the Flash episode, you're going to be golden for taking photos during holidays, because most of the stuff you're going to be probably taking indoors. I'm talking about like family shots, or in front of the with the turkey, or in front of the Christmas tree. So that's exactly what we are doing today. Slide number, let's keep myself on track here. Slide number 2. I gotta organize better because I have I'm planning on showing you the camera stuff, but I also need access to my keyboard. So first thing, well, it's not really first. Second thing here that we need to talk about is is exposure. So what I'm gonna actually this so this is an example of like whenever I would see one of those images, I would immediately like get turned off because I'm like, what is this? It looks so technical, like looks like you have to calculate things on the fly. But what I grabbed that image just to show you guys that anything in your camera is about exposing the image correctly. So you're not too dark, you're not too bright. You have to be somewhere like in the middle so that it's exposed properly. And the reason why we have different cameras on this dial, why we have the different settings, is because you can achieve this middle exposure different, like in variety of ways, right? So there's three levers that we use to expose image properly. One of them is aperture, which is f-stop. Then we have shutter speed, which is at the bottom of this image there. And then we have ISO. And those three things, if you're eventually down a road in manual mode, those three things have to work together to make the right exposure and get the results that you want. Fortunately, you don't have to worry about it just now. We're not going to talk about manual mode today. But all I want you to understand is that if you are in manual mode, you have to understand that like if you change one of these, so like those three have to be manipulated. Imagine like three knobs, right? And like you're moving three knobs to get the sort of perfect exposure of your photo. And like, but if you set them up to a certain level and like the image looks good, then if you go ahead and change one of them, like you have to understand that you're going to have to adjust to other ones. How do we do it? That's going to be a separate episode dedicated to manual mode, and I'll actually show you the camera. I'll show you some images. I'll go outside and take some photos so you guys understand. Today, we're basically just like going through those principles here: ISO, shutter speed, and f-stop, and understanding like what is it? What is it doing in my camera? Not necessarily how it works in your camera, because nobody cares. But like, what kind of effect do I get if I use higher f-stop or lower f-stop? What happens if I use higher shutter speed versus lower shutter speed? What happens if I use higher ISO versus lower ISO? And then we're going to talk about white balance and composition as well, just so you guys understand, like when I'm looking at my image or my camera settings, how do I leverage those? So on this one, I think we're okay. I just wanted to point out, like, and hopefully you guys can see it. So let me see if I can do like a little mouse over where that magnification glass is. This is f-stop of 1.4 and it goes to f18. Just, you don't need to understand like why, or you don't have to memorize the numbers. You just have to understand that there's a range. Like it goes from super low, like 1.4 to 18, 22, depending on the camera. It will be different. And then you have ISO. ISO ranges also go from some cameras 50, most cameras 100, all the way up to like, even with modern cameras, it's super crazy. It's really, really nice because ISO it's just got better over time, right? Like when I started in 2005 or, you know, whatever, 17 years. So when I started, I remember 2009. I think my math is right. See, that's how good I am with math. So I can't rely on that. I have to just kind of understand the principles when I use them. So ISO was really kind of not all the way there. Like if you cranked up the ISO, and we'll talk about it, what that means, your images would get worse. There would be like a lot of grain. With cameras today, guys, you can crank it up. Like you can be in a dark space, in a church, in an environment with like maybe you're at your kid's show. Maybe you're at the night game or something and you're taking pictures with your photo. Like you can crank up your ISO. What that means is make your image brighter, but you're not going to experience any problems or any grain unless you go super crazy high, right? So I'll take you through the example and show you exactly what it means. But f-stop is a range, ISO is a range, and so is the shutter speed. Here I have like 1/80th of a second, but like it goes from like super slow, and I'll talk about it, what that means, to like a super fast shutter speed. So you can actually see at the bottom there's like a motionless person and somebody and like person in motion. And what that means is you're gonna actually have to adjust. So when you're looking at like fast action dances, maybe sporting events, races, you want to make sure that you're in the range where like the camera freezes the motion. This is kind of making your photos blurry. When you're on the other hand in the lower range for just taking portraits of somebody, you don't have to set it to like a super fast mode, right? Because what comes with that is like the faster you make your camera to take the photo, the more light you're going to lose. So it's actually like so then you'll start over time understand like, oh, so I'm making my camera to be faster in terms of taking the photo, but that's taking light away. If I take the light away, how can I now compensate with between the f-stop and ISO to like make it brighter with those values? So you can see like it's almost like imagine you have sliders, right, on the scale. If you move one, like you automatically have to adjust the other one higher, right? And depending on the result, we'll talk about it. Like I said, manual mode, I will dedicate an episode and talk about that stuff. All right, so enough for this slide, because I got to tell you, like this was normally something that would turn me off, so don't worry about it. Let's go through them individually. And before I actually do it, because we talk about those three things, and I was thinking about the other day, somebody was asking, and I was responding. I'm like, what's like a good analogy for like why are those things even there? Like in terms of like achieving the right exposure for your photos. And I will say this. So the trick in photography in your cameras is basically to get enough light onto the sensor, right? Like imagine like sensor, it's like a paper, you're producing on the fly, right? And it's like you just have to the whole that's what the game is about, getting enough light onto the sensor so that you can get the nice photos. And the thing is, I always think of it as like imagine a room with no windows, pitch black, right? To that room, this is like inside of your camera. It's just pitch black, right? There's no light coming in. So imagine we now have a window, which is where your lens is sitting, right? And in one wall, you're basically installing a window, right? And now it's like, and on the wall, this is gonna hopefully not get too complicated, but on the wall, you're hanging a Polaroid picture, right? So now imagine the light needs to get inside your camera or inside that room. Now, how can we control the amount of light coming in? And now imagine it's a window, but the actual glass is painted black, right? So the only way to get light into the camera, into that room, is to open the window. And now it's like, how can we get more light into the room? Well, one way to do it would be like to have huge window versus a small window, right? So if we have a big window, we will get more light, smaller window, less light. This is our f-stop. So f-stop works the same way. Basically, your camera is adjusting your aperture, the little blades on your camera, which you guys are going to see in a second. I'll show you. But it's basically the camera is telling like how big the window will be at the moment when the photo is being taken. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it would be, even if you have small window, you can open the window for a longer time to allow more light in, right? Or you can just open it for like a split of a second and close it, and that means less light. This would be your shutter speed. So camera not only controls the size of the window, but it controls the amount of light, like how long is the window open for. And then the third value, which is the ISO, is really, I mentioned at the beginning, there is like a Polaroid paper hanging on the wall. Like in order to get light onto that Polaroid, onto that sensor, Imagine this Polaroid is made out of like a super sensitive paper or like less sensitive paper. So like no matter what light comes in through that window, so like camera controls the speed and the size. But like we also have ISO, which is basically sensitivity to light. So if we had like a super sensitive paper, even if you open the window for a short amount of time with like a small opening, if the paper is super sensitive, it will like absorb the light quick. And if the paper is less sensitive, like it would require more time and longer exposure for for the light to be absorbed by the paper, and the paper would be like in place of the ISO. So it's the size of the window, the speed of which we open, and then the sensitivity of the paper, and you can change that sensitivity by adjusting your ISO in the camera. And if all of this went over your head, don't worry about it, because I will be actually going through showing you guys examples for every single thing, every single setting, starting I think with aperture f-stop. But let's just take a look. I'm going to go back to slides here and let's see what we have. So understanding f-stop aperture, I was correct. What it controls, f-stops control how much light enters your lens and determine your depth of field. That that gorgeous blurry background effect you see in professional portraits. I gotta tell you, this is one of the probably top questions that I get when somebody's looking at photos, like how do you get that blurry background? And even today, including like Android and iPhones, you actually can adjust the blurriness of your photo. It's more synthetic. You can kind of see on the edges when you have a person standing there. If you look really close or if you zoom in, you can see that the camera is trying to like guess and blur out the background kind of digitally. With those professional cameras, when you use the professional lenses, it's the f-stop that controls that. So it's the glass that's doing the work, not the processor like it is with iPhones or phones in general. So the blurriness is really like first thing that comes to mind for me. I gotta tell you, 90%. Let's talk about an event, because it really depends on what what you're doing with your photography. If you're doing portraits, it may be different. If you're doing product, we focus on something else. I'm just gonna say, because everybody, no matter what kind of photography you're doing, you're still probably doing at some point like an event photography, whether it's somebody's birthday or like a special family event, or taking family photos for like friends or neighbors or whatever. So it's super easy to relate to. So for me, when I do events, I use an f-stop of 2.8, and I'll show you where I'm setting it. But what it controls is it's that blurriness behind my subjects. So and the lower the f-stop, then the more blurriness there is. But as a general rule of thumb, 90% of my photography, last 17 years, I've been shooting at 2.8. Sometimes for portraits, I go to 1.4, 1.8. Usually at 2.8. And then if I do family photos, like group photos, when I have people stacked, in the group with like not just a single row, but maybe there's like another, second, third row, I would then use a higher one, like 5.6. And then if I'm doing landscape photography, I want to make sure there's no blurriness, because I want to have everything crisp, nice, crisp, and clean in my photos. And at that point, I'm shooting f11, f14, f22. Like it really depends on what you're doing. But let's just assume for this example, we're doing a family event, 2.8, and that's what we're going with. When to use what? Lower f-stop, it says 1.8 to 2.8, perfect for portraits with dreamy blurred backgrounds. Remember that. So like whenever you're thinking, how do I make it blurry? I'll show you how in a second. Higher f-stop, f8 or f16, ideal for landscapes where you want everything sharp from foreground to background. That's exactly what I just described. And think of aperture like your eye's pupil, because it's built kind of based on that. When it's wide open, in dim light, narrow, in bright conditions, for those for cat lovers, you can probably see it almost every day. When it's a little darker, or when the cat is super alert, and it happens to us, by the way, look in the mirror, like in the dark room, your pupil will open up more, right? And then narrow down with bright light. But if it's darker, it's going to open up. Same thing happens with the camera. But I'm digressing. Let me actually take you through an example, and let's see what we got here. Let's see if you guys can see this. So quickly, just an example, just so you understand what's happening here. For the, I mentioned the iris, the size. I'm not going to go into technicalities. All I'm going to say is there's like a way for camera to adjust that opening when it's taking a photo. And it could be a small opening at f16 and a big opening at f1.4. So this is just an example of what it would kind of look like inside your lens. We don't really care. What we do care about, however, is this image here. So like, okay, so when I have it at 1.4, what does that mean? If I have it at f16, what does it mean? And this is a perfect example here. When you look, and I hope you guys can see details in this. Let me see. So if we're starting at f1.4, which I told you, like I'm usually at 2.8, this is somebody's going for like, you know, this is the effect of like super blurry background where your subject is still in focus. This is a lower resolution photo, but you can see the blur, you know, how blurry the background is in this one. And then when you're looking on the opposite side of the scale, where the f-stop is higher, f16 in this case, almost nothing is blurry. So this is very, very important for you guys to understand, because this is what you're going to be setting on your camera. So now let me actually switch over to this view and just kind of show you like where is this value first, right? So when I'm looking at the camera here, as I shoot throughout the day, I always monitor the camera for 3 values really. And it's a combination. I hope we're not going to get a reflection here, but you guys can see. I will switch to. Actually, if I put it in auto, will I see it? Yeah, I will see it. So you can see 3 values there. One is 160, 40, and 2.8. I will depress it again. Right there, guys. My f-stop is right here. It was showing 2.8. This is what my camera is when I move it around and depress it. Like it shows different value, just because camera is guessing. Like right now, it's just guessing, and that's why so many times, like when camera is guessing, we don't get the effects we like, and that's why we want to get out of auto mode as soon as possible. But when I want to show you here, the f-stop here, which is this first 2.8 here, will be changing. So if I move my camera, it's 2.8, but then it changes to 3.2, if you can see that. And all the values along with that one, all the values are changing, 3 of them. And this is not what we want in photography. We want to be able to control, like, hey, I want blurry background. So to do that, you actually have to get out of your auto mode. I will switch my camera to P mode, or even better, I will go to aperture priority, the AV mode. And the really nice thing about this mode, guys, is that you can now set, see this value 2.8? If I crank the wheel at the top here, see how the number is changing? It goes all the way like up to 11 and 16. And those are the f-stops that I mentioned before, right? Like the ones that I was showing you. Or I can go down and pass 2.8 to like 1.2 in this case, and your lens will dictate how low you can go. If you look at your lenses, this is not, can I see it here? You guys can probably, hoping that you're going to be able to see it. See how it says 1.2? This is the lowest point I can go to. So in my case, I will, for regular, when I'm taking pictures at home at an event, I would set my camera to 2.8 right there. And guess what? The camera now will keep it at 2.8 f-stop. It will make all the photos blurry, and it will do guesswork on all the other values and adjust accordingly. I mean, there's some minuses later. We're going to talk about it probably in the manual when we get to the manual mode. But for just normal everyday shooting, you guys should try that. If it's a super dark room, you're going to have to increase your ISO, which we're going to talk about in a second, or definitely have a flash with you. But that's what you need to know here. I set it to 2.8, and the camera now when I move it around, you guys will see like my shutter speed. That second number here, this one here. See how it's changing? 125, 200, right? You guys can see that it's changing the value, but my f-stop never changes. It's 2.8. So all my photos are going to be nice blurry background, right? All of them are going to have nice blurry background. So that's number one. The AV mode, set it to 2.8 and take all the photos. Obviously don't try it at the event, but like when you're at home, I always say, take your camera, just move around the house, set it to like 2.8 and just try taking just photos of, of things. And always remember that in order to get the nice blurry background, you have to have your subject in front of you. And the thing is, the closer you are to your subject, the more blur you're going to get in the back. If you step away from your subject, you will get less blur. So just remember that. So f-stop, I guess the homework that you guys can try for today or maybe over the weekend as you prep for the holidays is like, take your camera, AV mode, set it to 2.8 and let the camera do the rest of the work. By the way, before I move to the next setting, I wanted to let you guys know, I always, the episodes are going really live on Facebook platform and YouTube. If you have any questions, if there's something where you got stuck or not clear, or like I did change the setting, but something didn't work, I always wanted to encourage you, look at the comments and just leave your questions there. It's super helpful for me too, because I can, as I'm answering questions or as I'm creating different episodes, like I'm mentioning the going through manual mode, I can actually incorporate those questions in. This way I know exactly where you're stuck. So it's super helpful. One thing that I wanted to flash on a screen, if I can, is depending on where you're watching, if you're on a phone, it's gonna be hard. But if you go and scan, if you're watching on TV, which most people do these days, especially with YouTube, is scan this code. You can get to the other community. You can get to the new school community that I'm launching. So you can basically join the world and like not only have access to the episodes, but also have access to me. And this way you can ask questions or leave it in the comments. That would be super, super helpful. So back to the slides. Let's go back to slides. So I think we're pretty good in terms of the f-stop, like what it means. It's all about blurry backgrounds. So that's that. And then next slide. Let's see. We're going to talk about ISO. Do I want to go in that order? Actually, I'm going to do this. Let's talk about shutter speed first, and then we'll circle back to ISO because I want to stay close to that analogy that I gave you, like with the dark room and the window. So the first thing was the size of the window, which is the f-stop. We've covered that. Now we were saying like, how quickly do we open the window, close the window to allow more light in? And this is when we get to shutter speed. And immediately I'm going to go to this view here. And as I was showing you before, this was 2.8. This was our f-stop. Next to it is our shutter speed. And right now it's showing 60. But as I move and the camera is measuring light, my shutter speed is changing. We don't want the shutter to change. Especially if we're in auto mode, you guys will see all the numbers are changing. I'll do it again. So now f-stop is changing. Shutter speed should be changing depending on like how I move the camera. But what I want to do here, and this is especially important for somebody that's shooting like sporting events, somebody running, somebody playing sports, even dancing, especially in like a low light situation, right? We want to make sure that our shutter speed is for sporting events that it's super high. So right now you guys can see that my hold on a second, let me just make sure. Okay, so right now you can see that my shutter speed right there is at 2500. That's super high. So if I wanted to freeze a moment, somebody running, I would want to shoot higher. It doesn't have to be that high, but you cannot be in the lower range. So if my camera was, let's say, in like 1/30th of a second, 1/40th of a second, I almost hate saying a second because now I'm like all of you guys like myself had problems with math back in elementary school. You're like, holy shit, I don't want to calculate anything, and you don't have to. All I'm saying is make sure that now that number is at least when you're like have people moving, taking some candid shots, that the number is 80 and higher, preferably 100 and higher. And then as you get closer, as people move more or move faster, you want to make sure that it's like in 300s, 400s. When you're shooting maybe like nature, right? Birds are moving and you want to be in a higher range. And then when it comes to like sports, you guys will see where it is. It's not uncommon to be super high, depending on what, the type of like sporting event that you're doing. But that's exactly what it is. So again, I will show you guys, highlight again, my camera is in TV mode, which is time priority mode. And this is where I set it on my camera. And then my camera is doing the rest of the guessing. So now the priority is not blurriness. The priority is like, I need to make sure that the action is stopped, that it's like I can freeze the moment, right? And that's really what the shutter speed is designed for. And now you guys can, somebody may say, hey, but I want to freeze action, but also want to have blurry photo. And like, again, that's exactly why we have manual mode. And we're going to talk about it in the separate episodes. For right now, I'm just focusing on basics. So to freeze action, we got to go higher. If you want to create blurry photos, which sometimes is actually intentional, I have, when you guys are looking at the slide here, there's an image there of like, in this case, the camera was probably sitting on a tripod with longer exposure. And what that means is that window, that opening was there. It was open for a longer period of time. And what happens is the camera is exposing for the mountains, but anything in front, like passing cars, because the window is now open longer, there's time that allows this car to like pass, right? And because it has lights on, it creates this nice effect of like cars passing without really seeing the cars. You can only see the trails, the light trails, which is really nice. Same thing with like shutter speed. When you set it super low and like that window is open longer, you guys probably have seen online some like examples of people that are doing like light painting, which is basically they take some sort of a light source, like a flashlight, for example, and they open their camera for a while and literally move in front of the camera with a light beam or light stick, or like I said, flashlight, and even phone, and you can literally create paintings in front of your camera. Probably subject for another episode also, but that's really what I want you to understand. Fast shutter speed, the higher the number, you're going to be able to freeze more. The lower the number, you're creating blur. Sometimes motion is desired. Like even in sports, I know everybody wants to like freeze the action. They want to see the details, but sometimes that little bit of motion gives you the like momentum. You almost can feel the action, not only like have a frozen subject. I was actually, a friend of mine was photographing an event for a local police force, and they were photographing dogs, and especially with like animals, it almost looks kind of synthetic and fake when like you use your super high shutter speed and freeze like dogs in motion. They just, for your brain, somehow it just flying dogs don't it just, my brain had a problem when I was looking at the images. I'm like, I wish there was like a little bit of like motion, a little bit of blur, some here and there, because it makes the photo more dynamic. So like you guys can experiment, just try with different shutter speed settings and see what you get. And then it's really, there's no science, it's what you like. So so it's very, photography is very subjective. So it's really what you like, and will your clients like that? Because ultimately they're the judge, not your girlfriend, not your mom, not your wife, not your just people that pay. Even sometimes I say I'm not even the judge, because I may like something that my clients may not like, and we're here to make money. So just wanted to make this clear. But just to cover this slide, fast shutter, 1/50th hundred of a second or 2,000 of a second. So I'm just going to say 500 or 2,000. Freeze fast action like sports, wildlife, or kids running around. Captures every detail in sharp focus. I'm just going to go back for a second. Kids running around, because that was the question I got. Mom was trying to take photos of their kids on the playground, and she's like, all of my photos are blurry because she's shooting in auto mode. Depending on lighting, the camera is like, let's make the shutter speed 60 or 80, and that's why all the photos are blurry. Once she switched over to TV mode on her camera and set it, she did set it higher, then she was freezing the action. She was super stoked about that. So medium is 60 to 250. General everyday photography, street scenes, casual portraits, handheld shoots without blur. I gotta tell you, even at weddings, when I usually try to pay attention, make sure that its shutter speed is at around 80 or 100. Some photographers would argue and like, oh, that's too low, you're gonna create blur, but like it really depends. Sometimes it's intentional. When I'm shooting like scenes of people dancing, for example, I want to have a little bit of motion in there. My flash kind of freezes the subject, but then there's a little bit of motion in their hands, and like, I don't know, the photos just, for me, they seem nicer. For somebody else, try a different setting and see what you like. So I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just kind of showing you the options, and like, you guys figure out what you like and what your clients resonate with. And then slow shutter speed, 1 second or longer, create artistic motion blur with waterfalls, light trails, or starry skies. Tripod required, obviously, at that point, because the window is open so long. Any movement in like shake with your camera is not going to work. So you have to have it on a tripod. So when you're doing the skies or the light trails, like in this photo I showed you, or like even waterfalls, water flowing, if you have your shutter speed set to a higher setting, it'll freeze the water. But if you have it at a longer setting and it's setting on a tripod, it'll create this nice flowy scene. So let's see what I have for examples, because I think I have something for you guys here. And like I said, I did skip ISO, so let's just talk about shutter speed first. So you can see slow shutter. Slow shutter is the is where we get a lot of blur in this image. Fast shutter is like the object is moving at the same speed, but like fast shutter will freeze it, and the slow shutter will allow the blur. And like in this case, you guys can decide. Like you can see here, like too much blur is not good. Freezing the subject is not good because it doesn't show that we're like trying to show motion. And like so depending on what your goal is, if you're trying to get details, go with fast shutter and just freeze it. But if you want to show like the object being in action, or like player being in action, like your kids, maybe a little bit of blur is okay, because it still shows, I don't know. It's just my opinion. So play around with it, see what you get, and this is the only way to do it. And do I have another one? Yes, I mentioned the waterfalls. So this is exactly what I was talking about. If you have like a slow shutter, if you put it on a tripod, everything else will be steady because nothing else is moving here other than water. And if you have like a slow shutter speed, it'll be open for longer time. It's like cars passing by and you can see the trail. Same with water, it'll pass and you'll see the if you're on the beach, same thing. Sometimes you see those like dreamy photos with waves crushing. That's exactly how you get to that. And I have a photo of the light trails here. So you can go like over the highway, set up your camera on a tripod. The camera is exposed for what's around, right? But because it's a longer shutter, it's creating those light trails, and you can't see the cars. You can only see the light. So I think that's it for shutter speed. Yes. Now we're gonna go back. Actually, we're gonna go back to the previous slide, and let's talk about ISO. So ISO, back to the example of the window. We've covered the size of the window. We've covered the time, for how long the window is open, and now we were talking about this photo paper hanging on a wall in that dark room. And it's like, depending on how sensitive the paper is, the light will stick to it, faster or slower. And I mentioned also, back in the day when we still had like film, the film was rated at like 100 ISO or 400 ISO, 800 ISO. I think that's the only ranges I remember, or maybe that's what was available over the counter. But this is exactly what we have in digital photography. It used to just like ISO ranges were not good. the processors, not the processors, but the light, the sensors were not as good back in the day. So anytime you would try to like crank that sensitivity of light, it would create a lot of like you can't see it in this example on this slide, but I will show you another one where it's more visible. And this one basically says, if you look at the picture of the flower, it says that it's ISO 100 crisp but darker, 3200 ISO grainy but brighter, and you will see on another image that I'm going to show you is like whenever you crank up ISO, it introduces grain. Not something that you have to worry about in 2025, I also want to say, because the cameras are so good these days that I like ISO. It's almost like a savior, right? If like there's not enough light in a room, but you don't have your flash, but like you have to crank up your camera to like make sure that this photo is right, you guys can always resort to using higher ISO because it's just very forgiving these days. It wasn't the case a few years ago. But it says bright conditions ISO. So this is my rule when I'm working with my two girls right now. I always say like, hey, we're outside. Start with 100. Then we're going to figure out where to go. Medium light. When you're inside a room, maybe there's windows, so you get good lighting. Perfect for cloudy days or indoor spaces with decent natural light coming through the windows. I always tell them 400, 800, and that's the range I use. It's just in my head. Like I'm outside 100. When I'm inside with good lighting, 400, 800. If it's a low light, like a darker church, what does it say? Bump it up for evening shots or dimly lit rooms. Expect some grain, but you'll capture the moment. Like I said, very forgiving these days. ISO adjusts your camera sensitivity to light. Higher numbers mean more sensitivity, but also more visible grain or noise in your images. And it sounds kind of scary. I promise you're going to be fine. We are very often, most of the time, we, when I say we, it's me and Joanna, because she shoot most, we shoot most of the weddings together. I'm in the church, no flash. Priests, not, they usually are not big fans of flashes. Plus, you don't want to interrupt the event, every 5 seconds with your flash going off. So it's not abnormal to shoot at like 4000 ISO and there's not really noticeable grain. I mean, anybody can argue, anybody can put it under magnification glasses and say, zoom in far enough to say there's more grain. Yeah. Will your client notice? That's exactly what I'm optimizing for. Is the client like, is there a problem for a client when we bump up ISO? And never had a problem, and that's what I'm going with. But I understand the technical explanation of it. Like, but I'm not, not here to argue against it. So ISO, that's it. Let me show you the images just so you have a visual representation of what's happening here. So I actually have to go up, and hopefully you guys can. I hope you can see it, and on the phone probably you won't be able to see it, or maybe. But on the bigger screen, or if you're watching on your laptop, desktop, you can actually magnify that, and you guys can see that ISO 1600, which is already high ISO. This is inside of a coffee place, right? 1600 ISO, almost no grain. 3200 ISO, there's slight grain. ISO 6400, this is when we're pushing, like you can see the grain in this cup. Again, I'm looking at the bigger image, and hopefully you can do it too. It will be noticeable, but you'd still get the image, right? So and like I said, even 6400 in cameras these days is not really an issue. So you'll see that in higher ranges, 12,000 ISO, you're still going to be okay to get away with it. So this is what it looks like in this image. This is ISO 200, even outside evening, 200, try it just depending on what effect you want. And then ISO 3200, almost not noticeable, 6400. I think the previous image was a better example, but in this one, if you can see it, if you're watching on the big screen, you'll definitely see it. 6400, there's more grain there. The camera ISO, let's do the same thing, the same exercise. So if I'm in one of these modes, or manual mode, or even P mode is just above auto mode. This is where camera is still doing all the sort of guessing for you. You can see that my f-stop is changing. Is my shutter speed changing? It may change to 50. Oh, I see it changing. You guys probably, I don't know if you can see it. 50. Like, look at the there's 3.5, 4.0. Shutter is changing to like 80, 60, all over the place. But the last number we didn't talk about is here, ISO. And with Canon cameras, it's the ISO button at the top here. It says ISO. I hit it, and then I will change my ISO. You guys can change it. It starts with like auto, but the first value on this camera is 100. There's some cameras where it's 50, and then you can crank it up. So like I said, outside I would always have it set up to 100. If I'm inside, I gotta hit that thing again. If I'm inside, less light, I would be at around 400 to like 800. And then if it's really like not enough light, I would crank it up higher. Like I said, sometimes at events 4000 ISO, and it's not a problem for us. So that's where you set your ISO. And for the different modes where, you know, previously we talked about AV and TV mode, if you're in those modes, you can also go to your ISO, set your blur, and then at the same time, if your pictures, if you set it to 2.8 and you don't get enough light, you can then compensate it with ISO. So you can come here, hit ISO, and then you can play with your ISO until you get the exposure right. So more on this later. Like I said, manual mode we will cover separately. So we're done now with aperture, f-stop, shutter, ISO. Two things that I wanted to mention, and I'll go quick because we're getting probably to an hour. Yeah, close to 55 minutes. I appreciate you guys being here, by the way. Again, reminder, leave comments with questions because it helps me tremendously. If you're on YouTube, if you can consider leaving a like or subscribing, that would be awesome. Last two things that I wanted to touch on is, let's go back, look at the slides again. And we've covered shutter speed, white balance. White balance, guys. White balance, very easy. What is white balance? White balance is just the color temperature of your photos. So whites look truly white, not blue, yellow, or orange. Different light sources have different temperatures measured in Kelvin. Kind of technical. You don't have to remember that. What you have to understand is, especially lately, we have switched from conventional bulbs to LED bulbs for your house, right? So, and when you go and buy a bulb, it actually has like Kelvin temperature, which I don't know if you guys noticed or knew. If you are looking at the box, it usually says like the temperature of the light. So if you're still like, I'll say old school and like the yellow light, because that's what you're used to, because most of the LED lighting now it's more of a translation of natural light outside. So when for me, you know, I'm 49, so for me, when I installed the new bulbs in our house, I'm like, wow, that looks so weird. Like the light is so white, and I like the like coziness, and you know, I'm just used to it. Seeing the yellow light, it has changed for me over time. But like on the box, when I go to the store, I like to see something in that range, and you can actually see it on the slide here. In this range, like around 3,000, 3,500, maybe a little higher, but it gives me the nice warm light. Then in between, you sort of have the mix of like the warm and the cold light, which is basically daylight, right? So 4,500 daylight, and then cold light is higher. So when you're buying LEDs and you see something around like 5,000 Kelvin on the box, like you'll know that it's more of a bluish light. The cameras actually come with like settings to help you with this stuff. Not a lot of people are familiar, obviously, with Kelvin measurements and like temperature of the light. And at the beginning, maybe you don't even want to worry about it because it's too many things to control. So my camera typically, let's take a look. My white balance, let me get it closer here for you guys. So this section of the camera, this is Canon, same on Nikon and Sony. The placement may be a little different, but the representation is kind of the same. Let me see if the little light will help us. Hopefully you guys can see it better. That area right there in the corner. So you saw it has like a little flash icon right there. And this is where we control. There's a button, white balance, this first one here in Canon cameras. And now you can see that it allows me to control, and this one I actually have to control with the back wheel. But you guys see how the modes are switching? There's a little cloud, there's a little sun, there's auto white balance, which camera guesses the temperature for you. There's a Kelvin, which allows you to set exact temperature of the light. And then you have fluorescent light. There's a setting for your flash. So when you have your external flash installed, you should be switching to this mode, or shooting or taking a risk in auto white balance mode. But that's really this is really how you set your white balance. And depending on what it is, if it's like a cloudy day, if it's indoors with regular bulbs, you can try the bulb mode here because that's the temperature for that. If it's a cloudy day, you can set it to this because normally your pictures on cloudy day will look a little colder. So this helps you make them warmer. And then, like I said, those are the settings that control that. Worst case, if you don't want to worry about it, you can fix it in post-production, but auto white balance is where I shoot probably half of the time when I really get lazy, or when I don't have to. But other than that, I personally shoot in Kelvin, and I set my temperature to my liking, and it just stays this way no matter where I am in the house or outside. So that's where I set my temperature. And a couple things from the slide that we still need to cover quickly is the auto white balance. Let the camera decide works great most of the time. Like I said, 50% of the time. And then daylight 5500 Kelvin, sunny outdoor conditions. Shade is 7000. It basically adds, those are suggestions for where you should be setting the Kelvin temperature, the K number to. So 7000, it adds warm to counteract with cool and blue shadows. On the other side, it's shade is 7000, cloudy is 6500. It's overcast days that need a touch of warm, and then tungsten 3200 indoor lighting with standard bulbs. So that's fluorescent light, and it's worse when we have a combination of different things, but it's just a trial and error later. What you guys have to know right now is like your camera out of the box is auto white balance mode, but you can change that, and I showed you how, and I also want to show you an example of what it means. Like I said, practically, what does that mean? So we have covered these shots, and this is just a range. Those are the different symbols that you see on your camera. So just so you understand, like when I'm looking at the camera and when I'm seeing like the bulb, what does that mean? Like what temperature is it? If I'm looking at the direct sunlight, like, oh, I'm at 5200. After a while, you guys will start clicking and understanding that if the number is lower, it's actually the opposite. I had a problem with that for, I don't know, probably took me 2 years until it finally clicked. But the lower the Kelvin, actually the warmer the image. So it's just something that's counter. I always, when I adjust it, I'm like, oh, I want it warmer, and that's why I have to go lower. It's counterintuitive. I get it, but it's just something you have to memorize, or trial and error. Just bump it down, take a photo, go up and adjust to your liking. But this is the representation of the different colors and the different symbols on your camera, so you know where you are. And what does it mean like in real life and photos? This is exactly what we're talking about here. So if you're in the original, the image in the middle is about the middle of the spectrum. If you look to the left, then it's like, oh, it's too cool, or on the other side, it's too warm. And guess what? Even if you choose for all of your work, like it doesn't have to be in the middle, it doesn't have to be calculated precisely, right? Some photographers intentionally make their photos cooler, or some photographers intentionally make their photos warmer. Is it a bad thing? You're not submitting your work for competition. Again, I'll say it again and again. It's really what you're optimizing for. So we are selling to our client. If you take, I don't know, baby photos or family photos, and your clients tend to like warmer images, and you can ask them, stay on a warmer side. If on the other hand, your clients prefer colder, or maybe you're shooting product and like your color has to be exact, then you can't make it colder. You can't make it because it has to be what the product is. So you'll see that like, oh, okay, then you have to kind of compensate and adjust and fix it. And then this is just another example. This same idea, person in the middle. This is kind of, like I said, middle range. To the right, you'll see the warmer image. To the left, you'll see colder image, and that's exactly what it is. So it's just another image. And you kind of saw a sneak peek of where we're going next. And our last thing is composition. Super quickly, something you guys, like I said, we're getting ready for the holiday season, shooting photos. Sometimes it's telling a story with your camera, so it's not just, we're not always taking pictures of people. Sometimes we're taking images of objects, like, I don't know, turkey, what's on the table, people, arrangement outside. So one thing to always remember, guys, rule of thirds. If you know it, fantastic. If you don't know it, rule of thirds is, let's switch to the next image here if I can. There's actually, this grid could be in your head or on your camera. There's actually Sony, Nikon, and Canon cameras have this option for you to be able to enable the grid, and it's 2 horizontal lines, 2 vertical lines, and all it is basically, when you're taking your photos, make sure that your subjects stay where those lines are crossing. Okay, so I'll show you a couple examples here. Typically what happens is everybody sees everything from almost the same angle, and it makes the photography not interesting, or does not pull our eye, as some experts will say. But the thing is, it's very basic. When you're taking your photos, you try to place your subject either on those lines or where they cross. I'll show you a couple of examples. So you can see example here already. The person, it's more visually appealing than us putting that person in the middle. It's all composition. Avoid kind of centering everything. The lines should be kind of, helping you. And let's just roll through a couple examples. This way you visually can see what I'm talking about. So when composing the shots, this is the next one. Subject this time, to the left. Again, similar example. You guys can see that, like, I don't know, the images are just more visually appealing. And this is something we would need to pay attention to. It gets better with practice, let me tell you. My daughters are going through and training with me right now, and I always tell them, like, off center, off center, off center, off center, and I see with time that it's changing and images are getting better, and they're shooting more off center, which makes the images pop more. Another one. Subject to the right this time. Another one, even when it's not people, even if you're shooting nature, same deal. It just kind of, the images are telling a better story, right? Same idea. Putting either to the left, to the right, subject on the right. Sometimes this is a little different. You guys are can say, like, well, what's up with this one? It's in the center, but like the water line is following one of the lines that we had on the image, like the bottom one here, and it just makes it just visually nice. So just something to remember. This was super quick. Let's see. I think I even had a slide for this. So quickly, rule of thirds: compose like a pro. Turn on your grid. Most cameras have rule of thirds grid overlay in the viewfinder. Look in your menu or LCD. Enable it in your settings. Position key elements. Place your main subject along one of the vertical or horizontal lines, not dead center, and use interception points, the 4 spots where lines cross. Our power points. Position eyes, faces, or focal points here for maximum impact. Practice here is the magic, guys. Like, just practice more, and it'll eventually you won't be able to take images when something is in the center, but it comes with practice, like I said. And then the rule of thirds creates more dynamic, visually interesting compositions by avoiding that static centered look. This is how we process information most of the time, so it's kind of boring. Our brain just, we don't, when we talk to a person, they're usually in the middle. When we're addressing something, it's usually in the middle. So it's like whenever somebody introduces this different angle, things of, different way of looking at things, for our brain our brain seems to be happier. So your photos will immediately feel more professional and intentional. This is very often what separates us from somebody that's not doing photography professionally. So in the let me see if I have a slide. Quick one here. We're past 1 hour mark, but Ready to shoot. Aperture f-stop controls light and depth of field. Lower for portraits, higher for landscapes. ISO sensitivity, adjust for lighting conditions, low in bright light, higher when dark. Shutter speed freezes or blurs motion, fast for action, slow for creative effects. White balance makes color accurate, use presets or dial in custom Kelvin temperature. And rule of thirds, compose with intention, place subjects on grid lines and not center. And now it's just like I said, it's time to practice. Grab your camera, just experiment with the settings, and you will see how your photography transforms. So like I said, practice, 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 practice. Not at the event. If you have like holidays coming up, Thanksgiving, December, we have Christmas again. I'll probably try to do like a 5-day sprint just to get you guys through the motion of like practicing those different things. But that's it for today. I really appreciate you guys sticking around. If you need to reach out to me, join the Facebook group, or on YouTube, leave a comment. Always happy to hear back from people. The more questions you ask, the better I know how to kind of structure this content to help you guys. The goal again is to get you from $0 to at least $2K very fast. You should probably be doing. You can probably do it in 60 days. So that's the challenge. Thanks again for joining today. I'll see you next time, Thursday, 12. And that's it for today. Hopefully that was helpful. Bye, guys.